Hello, everybody, and welcome to Flicker Effect. I'm David Lott. Joining me in this episode is Michelle Hillard. Unfortunately, Bobby and Yasha were not able to make it this week, but there was still plenty to talk about. We both finally saw John Wick 3. We discussed that HBO Game of Thrones documentary that they aired a week after the end of Season 8, The Last Watch. We talk about that. And of course, Godzilla, King of the Monsters was the big movie in theaters this past weekend. So we talk about that and much more. So we hope you enjoy it. This is Flicker Effect, episode 294.
So you're House Stark and I'm Hogwarts.
Yes.
I will say, if I had seen the Targaryen logo, I probably would have gotten it.
Yeah, I would expect that you would have gotten that.
I probably would have.
They just didn't have that.
They didn't have it. And we both heard them say in conversation that
what they had on the shelf. And that was Saturday. I was like, what are you guys doing tomorrow?
I was like, what the fuck are you selling tomorrow? You're not selling much tomorrow, are you?
Same with that other vendor we saw that had the Pokemon balls. I bought Atticus one.
Yes.
On Friday. This was on Friday. On Friday, they had these Pokemon ball chargers. We're recording, by the way. We had these Pokemon ball chargers, and the typical look for a Pokemon ball, the red and white version. There's different Pokemon balls.
Yeah, I've seen like red and yellow and green and white.
There's the blue, and I forget they have names. I mean, like I play Pokemon Go, and they have like the blue with like the red little marks on top, and the white on the bottom is a certain type.
I have
anyway,
no effing clue.
They were sold out of the typical red and white Pokemon ball on the first day on Friday. Well, I say first day for Thursday was first day of MegaCon.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, they sold out on Friday. I'm like, and then that other vendor with these cups that we drinking out of.
These Arctic, wonderful.
Yeah, that was on
tumblers. Saturday.
They're like, yep, what you see out here is what we got. I'm like,
I know. When I heard them say that, I was like, oh, really?
You know, there's still con tomorrow, right?
I was like, it's.
Did no one come to MegaCon prepared for the crowds?
I was like, it's 1 p.m. on Saturday, kids. Maybe it was 2:30 at that point. It was before we went and saw John Barrowman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just thinking, oh, wow, it's only the afternoon, guys. And you're open late tonight.
Right.
Like, good luck with that. I will say, though, the etching on this is nice.
Yeah.
Like
that
is well done.
If we knew what the vendor's name was, we'd give him a shout out, but I don't remember the name.
I may have had my receipt texted to me. Hold on. I want to be fair and shout out to the...
I mean, since we're talking about them.
Right. Hold up.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, never mind, because I will say it's not really popping up. Where's my brunch from the other day? Anyways, I'm sorry.
It's fine. So anyway, hi.
Hi, how are you?
Pretty good. I apologize for my voice. It is very low.
You have like the...
I'll try not to clear my throat a lot.
You have like the after 11 p.m. radio guy voice on a Tuesday night. Like
hosting the jazz station?
Not even the jazz station. I think you're kind of the guy that's kind of like, I'm just got a cool low voice because it's just a Tuesday, but you're awake and it's almost midnight and you must be working the third shift, so we're going to keep everything cool.
I don't mind my low voice other than
I like it.
It's got this kind of like rumble to it right now, which is a little like I need to get that to go away. Anyway, I've been sick all week, hence the low voice.
I like your low voice. Your normal voice is really cool, like on the radio. Like it sounds good, you know, like it sounds nice. And I think it's when you get like that. You said you like my voice when I'm sick though.
I did? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because mine gets deep. There's two versions of my voice when I'm sick. One is it's non-existent. Or two, when it's still existent, it's deep. And you said that you like that.
Oh, okay.
I remember this conversation. It was the thing one time when I was sick.
Cool.
And yours just went out.
No, yeah, like I said cool. And I was
just gonna cut out. Don't lose your voice.
I'll
the low
I'll try
rumble.
to get through this episode.
Keep the low rumble.
Anyway, that's why I sound the way I sound, because I've been sick. But I feel better now. It's just I don't have.
These are gonna look
voice.
sweet the next time that we record a video.
These cups.
Yes.
We should be recording video now. I was actually gonna. I mean, as we talked about last time, we kind of like reset the room. We have a new setup. I've been building a computer, which I finished this week. It's sitting behind me.
Sweet computer. It's all fancy
to help
lights.
with the video editing. And I was hoping to actually record video for Flickr Effect even this episode, maybe for the first time, but we didn't get a chance to do like a lighting test. So maybe next week.
We had a busy afternoon.
We had a busy weekend, a busy week, busy afternoon.
Yeah.
So
anyways. Yeah, seriously though, if they had Targaryen, I would have gotten Targaryen. But I like my house Hogwarts.
I like my Stark sigil.
I do like my Hogwarts insignia. Anyways, it's just pretty. I'm just looking going, this is really pretty. I'm glad that we got these tumblers. They're very nice. I like our nerd tumblers.
Good.
They make me happy. So, what have we watched? Oh, you know what I watched? I mean, you know what I watched.
I mean, we've watched lots of stuff. There's been a lot going on this week. This week was the opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge out at Disneyland, which has been a thing, which is not shocking. I say that like, oh my God, I can't believe it's been a thing. Of course it's a thing. Like, don't get me wrong. And it's going to open here in Orlando, the fall, right?
August. I think it's the weekend after we get back from Dragon Con.
So the fall, basically. I mean, maybe not technically the fall,
September
but
something.
After Labor Day, so that's the fall.
Technically, it's the fall, but in Orlando, Florida, it's still summer until like Halloween.
Yeah, and then that'll be a thing. It's just been funny, like kind of following like people I follow on social media who were able to go to like the opening day for like press, and then the second, I think there were like one or two. There was at least 2 days of press.
2 days of press, yeah.
And seeing all that reaction and stuff, and I'm watching people taking pictures in these areas, and there's so much space, and I'm like, it's frustrating because everyone is so happy and everyone's so like, man, this is awesome, and Disney did such an amazing job, and I'm sure they did. I'm not doubting that. It's still just like, it's unfortunate that they built this place that I feel like I'm not going to get to enjoy for a very, very long time, because I'm not willing, and this is going to sound funny what I'm about to say considering the things I've done.
No, I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say, but
I'm not willing to go through the kind of crowd madness to experience Galaxy's Edge anytime soon, mainly because it won't be the kind of experience I want. It won't be the experience those people got on those first 2 media days.
Those first 2 media days, I think, are extremely deceiving to the general public. Like, I'm watching Nathan Fillion lose his mind on Instagram and Twitter, by the way. Like, his brains were on the back wall. Like, he was so excited to go to Galaxy's Edge. And he's walking around, and there's space between him and other people. Like, everybody's very cool with taking turns and doing things, and I'm like, I'm super glad he got to have that experience. I'm glad that the press got to have that experience. However, the regular peoples of the world are not going to have that experience when we go. It is going to be a crap show, and apparently it has been. It's insanely crowded, and like, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, there's times I'm like, yep, I'm gonna wait 4 hours in line before this thing starts, or even the day before this thing starts. I will sleep in line to go to a thing. But this is something I'm not rushing out to, as I didn't rush out when the Harry Potter section opened up at Universal, as much as I loved it. And I was dying. I mean, dying, losing my mind, dying to go. I waited a very long time so that the first time I could go, I was able to walk through Hogsmeade and go into the school, and I was able to ride the ride without waiting a million years, and I was able to really enjoy everything I was seeing, and I was taking my time, and I was looking at every little thing, and I was like, this is amazing, and I love this, and I'm so glad I didn't come here when I was basically, wedged in a sandwich between other people that I don't know. And I don't want to do that with Galaxy's Edge. I want to take my time. I want to go when this huge mass hysteria of excitement kind of starts to ebb a little bit. And I want to go and I want to take my time and I want to look at all the things, all the detail. Because from what I hear, it's amazing. But no, I don't want to be so crowded that I miss things and I feel rushed and I don't want to lose the magic that is what it is.
Yeah, it's not going to be fun doing it that way. So
I don't like rubbing up against sweaty people that I am not related to and or good friends with.
And I say that, and I guess, I don't know what they'll do here in Orlando. I don't know if they've said, but it's my understanding out there is that like you basically have to have signed up for a time to go enjoy it. Like you get like I think a wristband or whatever. Like, yeah, you have to reserve a time period of a certain day to go right now because they know it's going to be that crazy.
But even then, though, apparently it's still people are complaining it's ridiculously crowded even when they take their timetables.
And that's insane that they did go out of their way to make people schedule times to go just enjoy an area. Kind of like what they would do normally for a ride with fast passes now. But
right.
But if they did that and yet it's still that insane, I'm like, well, why did you hand out so many per time? Like, what's the point at that point?
Right.
Like,
are people not leaving after a certain period of time and they're just lingering? So when the next group comes in, it's still like, oh, wow, this is still insane. I don't know.
I know Bobby had shared one article this week on our group chat. I didn't open it. Kind of showing pictures, I guess, of other parts of the park, how dead other parts of Disneyland are because everyone is at Galaxy's Edge.
Well, yeah, it's the new thing, man.
I mean, yeah, it's basically, it means it's the time to go to the park and do other things. Well, if you're not that excited about Galaxy's Edge, just go there and...
Right. And I will say as a whole, I hear that everybody says they're like, man, going to Disneyland and going to Magic Kingdom at Disney World or going to Disney World, two completely different experiences. People are like, we go to the Disneyland all the time and it's not insanely crowded. It's not like crazy. And like, I almost don't even know how to I feel like I've never been to Disneyland. I feel like I would be like, what's wrong? Like I would almost question what was happening because I've heard that it's not the same as like going to Disney World and going to the parks here where it's packed.
I mean, yeah, all I can say from my experience is I guess I don't know anymore because the last time I went to Disneyland, it's been a while. And I mean, when was that? It was probably in I don't know, around 2007, 2008 was the last time I was at Disneyland. God, has it been that long?
10 years?
Jesus. Anyway, no, maybe I've been at some point since then. I think I have. But anyway, it was at the time, I feel like the same as going to a park at Disney World in terms of crowds.
Oh, really?
But here at Disney World, crowds in like the last 10 years have gotten ridiculously
they are
bad.
So insane here.
Compared to when you and I were cast members working at Disney World, compared to now, it is a whole nother ball game. And I don't know if Disneyland has also done that or if it's still kind of the way it was back when I used to work at I worked briefly at Disneyland, and I don't know if it's the way it was back then or not. So,
right.
Or if it's also gotten as bad as Disney World has. It sounds like, based on what you're saying,
I've heard people that have gone recently in the last like year or two, and they're like, it's really nice to walk around and not just be like bombarded by other people. And I'm like, wow, that sounds lovely. That sounds magic. That sounds magical.
Oh, look what you did there.
That sounds magical. Because yeah, Disney World is, when I compare to when I was a cast member back in 2000, I'm going to age myself now. It's 2002, 2005, 2006, the different time frames I've worked there, like, there used to be a downtime. There used to be a off season, like when you would go and Like, I used to love going to the studios in like the off season because it was dead and it was amazing. And I used to love it because it's like, you could just, it was just so nice. Or even like in the quote unquote off season, which now no longer exists.
There really is no off season.
There is no off season anymore. And I used to go to the Magic Kingdom like in the morning, and basically from the time the park opened until about like lunch-ish, you basically own the Magic Kingdom. And it was amazing. I used to love that. It'd be so much fun.
Yeah, those days are over.
Those days are sadly so insanely over. It makes me so sad.
One last thing about Galaxy's Edge that irritated me. Somebody I follow on Instagram posted a little video on their Instagram, and it was them interacting with some of the First Order stormtroopers. And so you're reacting because you saw it.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah, it just irritated me that it was obvious that the stormtroopers, the people in costume, are not actually talking. It's like he's playing like recordings, like pre-recorded bits of dialogue of him saying, "Stop, person," like, "Show your identification." And you could tell like, he's kind of doing the typical like character bounce his head to the kind of dialogue. He's trying to act like what the person is saying. And it's just like, oh, really? Like the stormtroopers aren't actually speaking? Like, because it's obvious. It's obvious that he's not. And it's just like, it's irritating because it's so easily well done. If you've ever been around a 501st Trooper, ever at a convention or anywhere, like, it's really easy to do. Like,
it's insanely. It's a voice. There's a thing.
You can get an app on your phone,
and it just changes your voice.
Will basically change your voice. That I think a lot of 501st use that will sound like you're in a stormtrooper, like that kind of intercom, almost not intercom, but you know. What I mean.
They could just build a script for them. They can basically say, "Look, on this page, there's about 27 phrases you can say. And these are the phrases. Do not vary outside of these phrases.
Right.
Do not get creative with these phrases. You say these phrases, but you say them and use your voice thing." And that's it. And the story, it's just like the way all the characters that speak at a Disney park speak to you.
Yeah, there's face characters in the parks and they talk.
You have a dialogue that you follow.
It's just, I don't know. I was like, really? They're doing that? Like
you really couldn't just let them talk?
I know. I mean, it's not surprising knowing Disney, like, that they just want complete control and they don't want maybe a stormtrooper saying the wrong thing. But like, as we just said, there are face characters that talk. What's the difference?
I can have a full conversation with a face character. What's the difference between me having a somewhat maybe, scripted dialogue with a character that is wearing a helmet? And not to make too many comparisons, but if you go to Universal, you can interact with what is it?
Oh, like Megatron.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could talk to Transformers because there's actual people talking. And you could talk to Transformers and have a dialogue with a Transformer.
Yeah. Same kind of thing.
Explain to me why Disney just won't relinquish the leash a little bit.
I don't know. It was just, when I saw that video, I was just like bummed. Experience. I was like, oh, really?
Yeah, it's bumming.
Like, that just sounds irritating. Because it's so obvious. Again, it's obvious that it's like...
It's crazy obvious.
Like, anyway.
I agree with your complaint. Completely.
So,
but
Michelle, what have you watched lately?
Actually, I watched a movie that I've been wanting to see for a long time, and for whatever reasons, God and creation never let me see.
Man, you were that excited about watching the Godzilla movie?
Wow.
No, that's not true.
You're leading our listeners down a very different pathway. No. So I finally saw Moneyball.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yes, I finally saw Moneyball.
That's not what I expected you to bring up. Cool.
Really?
No, go ahead, please. You saw Moneyball.
I mean, it's by our
dude.
dude.
When did Moneyball come out?
Oh, I'm just guessing. I have no idea now.
You said it's by our dude.
Well, what would you call him?
Aaron Sorkin.
Yeah, he's our dude.
He's our man. He's our homie.
I thought so. We're the West Wingy fans. We like his stuff. Anyways, so I finally saw Moneyball. I will say I really, really enjoyed that movie. Actually, a lot.
Good. I'm glad you liked it.
And I think first of all, it's his normal, pacing of dialogue, which I love. And it's intelligent dialogue. It's not dubbed down for people to, I don't know. I was very happy with the film, and I like the pacing of it. It almost went by so fast. I think the one thing that really made it really interesting to me is unfortunately, the year that this is focusing on, 2002, when all these events happened with the Oakland A's and basically what the story is going on, I was living in my own little bubble working at Disney World that year. So I'm watching this movie and I'm like, holy crap, this was happening in baseball, and I love baseball. And I'm thinking, this was happening with the Oakland A's? Are you kidding me right now? I was like, are you serious? And I was just fascinated by the situation as a whole and how absolute very little I knew what the situation was because of the bubble I lived in that year that the events actually took place. So watching the movie, I was fascinated with the whole situation. I was just completely like, this is amazing. And I'm watching it and I'm just going, man, I was under a rock that year. And it was just I really liked it. I'm very happy with it. It's it's a very good movie, and I'm glad I finally got to watch that movie. Anyways, I just wanted to say, yeah, finally, woohoo! You have movies you never see just for whatever reasons, and I'm like, oh, I finally got to watch it. It feels so good.
Yeah, no, I'm the one that was like, hey, we're gonna watch this, and
yeah, it's summer baseball
because I've been kind of itching to watch it again, and I knew you hadn't watched it, so we watched it this week, and yeah, I love that movie. Yeah, I'm glad you liked it.
It's really good. Jonah Hill's really good in it. I really liked it.
He's very good in it.
Yeah,
it's a good Brad Pitt movie for me. Because I say that because I know I've said on this podcast before, I'm kind of like,
I think you're particular about Brad Pitt.
I'm particular about Brad Pitt.
There's no love or hate, just particular.
No, I definitely don't dislike him. I like Brad Pitt overall, but this is definitely one of this is better roles for me.
You know what movie I've not seen? I've seen a lot. I've seen almost every Brad Pitt film. There's one I haven't seen, and this is going to shock you only because of who did this movie. You're going to be like, I'm sorry, say what? I've never seen Burn After Reading.
I've never seen that.
Oh, we should watch that.
Yeah.
Because I heard, one, his performance is really good, but two, it's a Coen Brothers film. What's wrong with me? I love the Coen Brothers.
Did you know who was originally supposed to direct Moneyball?
No.
And sadly, it's funny, we know that Aaron Sorkin wrote it, and I say that, and he actually rewrote it. He wasn't the original writer of Moneyball. Oh. First of all, Moneyball's directed, it's based on a book. You probably know that.
Yes, I do know that. Yeah.
There was an original plan for a movie I think had been written by somebody else, and Steven Soderbergh was going to direct that.
I could see that. I could see that.
And yeah, you can't, even the way the movie even looks in its present form, you could see that it could be a Soderbergh movie.
I could totally see it. Basically all it needed was a sharper angle here and a little more of different coloration there, and it would totally be a Soderbergh film. Easily. I could totally see that.
And I don't know why, but it ended up not being a Soderbergh movie. It ended up being directed by Bennett Miller.
Oh.
And who also directed Foxcatcher, Capote. But yeah, and I guess Aaron Sorkin was brought on to rewrite the original script. So anyway,
gotcha.
Little background.
Well, I liked it. I'm very happy with it. And in a weird way, it's got me kicked off. I kind of want to watch more baseball films right now.
Oh, really?
I love baseball.
Oh, I love baseball too.
And I like baseball.
I'm happy that I've been watching.
I've
watched more baseball this season than I've watched in a while, and I love baseball. But my problem is, as much as I love baseball, I pull away from it because I don't pull away from it on purpose. It just naturally happens because I don't live in a town with a baseball team. We don't even have a minor league team in Orlando.
I know. I will say it's really weird for me because I feel like most of my life, when I've lived in the U.S., we have been by a major baseball team. So I've always gone to major baseball team games, like a major league game. It's a thing. And I will say, for the first time in my life, I've never lived so far away from a team. Not that our nearest team is Tampa, but I don't like Tampa. I don't like the Rays. I don't like the team. Let me rephrase it. I don't like the Rays. So I'm not going to drive for an hour and 20 minutes to go see a Rays game because I don't like the Rays.
It's not even so much that. It's like
that stadium too.
We're not going to dwell on this. The stadium's terrible. It's if it were in Tampa, it would be one thing. It's not. It's in St. Pete.
It's in St. Pete. It's even worse. You drive further.
For people who don't know, but it's like coming from Orlando. It's like a drive to Tampa is one thing.
Traffic.
And then, because the first time I went to a Rays game, and I'm saying this as someone who hasn't spent a lot of time in the Tampa Bay, St. Pete area. I don't know it all that well. Which is funny considering I grew up in Orlando, and it's really,
I know, it's so
really
weird.
Not that
you
far.
don't. I think I've been to Tampa and St. Pete more than you have.
It is relatively down the street. Like,
It is.
It is basically like you grew up in LA and you go to San Diego. It's like that.
Right.
San Diego, it's about as far, I think.
Right.
But I remember the first time I went to a Rays game. And I get to Tampa, and it's like, okay, cool, we're in Tampa. But no, you still got to go over this bridge.
Got to go over the bridge, deal with the traffic on the other side of the bridge.
Down whatever island or whatever it is, just in St. Pete to get to Tropicana Field. And then the stadium is just terrible. It's just not a baseball stadium.
No.
It's indoors, which makes sense. It's Florida, but it's just terrible.
It is.
And the fucking cowbells. Like, I remember I went to a Yankees game because I'm a Yankees fan. And everyone had cowbells that night, and I thought it was like a thing that night, like they gave them out. I was like, oh, tonight's cowbell night, and everyone's fucking banging cowbells, and I'm like, it's a fucking baseball game, people, what the fuck are we doing? And then I've watched Rays games on TV since, and I still hear them.
It's just the cat is their thing.
I'm like, oh my god, you people are terrible. And then they're just bad. I'm not gonna go. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop.
Well, anyway,
I don't want to go on a rant about Rays
we
fans.
Don't. I will say.
I love Tampa. It's fine. It's just the Rays are not my thing.
In Orlando,
plus you're in the same division as the Yankees, and I'm a Yankees fan, so
right.
There we go.
We're in a desert of Major League Baseball in Orlando, Florida. So, but I've kind of wanted to watch other baseball films that I've seen and that I love, but also films. You know, I've never seen The Trouble with the Curve.
I've never seen that.
I've heard mixed things on that film, which I think makes me curious to see that film. Plus, apparently, you know, it's just, I don't know. It seems interesting to me. But yeah, like, I really want to watch some baseball films that I haven't watched in forever.
So, last episode, Bobby talked about John Wick 3, and we hadn't seen it yet. And then you still hadn't even seen John Wick 2.
Yeah, so we went on John Wick kick.
We watched John Wick 2. Which I had seen, but I rewatched it with you. And
literally 10 hours later, I was watching John Wick 3.
The next day, we went and saw John Wick 3. So first, well, what did you think of both of them? I mean, did you always originally like John Wick, the first film?
I did. And what was funny is we watched John Wick 1 a week earlier. So John Wick, the first John Wick, was fresh in my mind.
Right.
And I like John Wick. I think it's a fun film, and I like it. I mean, you're definitely not watching this film for the acting. Let's be real.
I'm going to be mean, but if you're watching a Keanu Reeves movie, you're not watching a movie for the acting.
Not really, no. But
and I say that, and I like Keanu Reeves.
I do too. And there's been movies that he's acted okay. He's been pretty okay in that I've seen that I liked. Anyways, no, I really do enjoy the first one. I think it's a lot of fun. I think the action's really great in it. I'm watching the second one. And I'll be honest, I actually really like the second one. Again, acting's not great. And I think, because I've heard some people, because I've asked them, and they're like, oh, I really wasn't that big of a fan of John Wick 2. And I was like, really? They're like, yeah, the story pacing just seemed kind of slow, especially once he went to, Spain? What was the other country you wound up in?
I mean, we just watched it, too.
I know, we just watched it, too, so sad. He was in Barcelona, wasn't he?
I think, anyway.
Anyways, so,
Europe, we'll just say Europe.
He's in Europe.
No, he went to Rome.
Rome, that's it. He was in Rome.
Right, sorry.
I was thinking kind of in the same. Anyways, so he's in Rome, and I guess a lot of people think that whole section is kind of meh.
Really?
And I'm like, really? I've had discussions since this. I know I haven't talked to you about it because I keep pretty tired, but no, I'm like, really? They're like, yeah, it just kind of got really kind of slow and kind of boring. And I'm like, I thought that was one of the most entertaining portions of it, quite honestly. Like,
yeah.
I like when he gets there and he's like shopping, like he's getting all his cool stuff, and there's really not a lot of dialogue happening there, and I really liked that. I was like, he's like suiting up, he's getting ready to go on this mission. I'm like, this is gonna be awesome, and it was a super cool. I really liked it. I think, yeah, I really had a lot of fun with the second one, and I liked it a lot. It was impressive.
So 3.
So John Wick 3, I did not love as much as the first 2. And I say that, and I still had some good, I still had a fun time. And
remember, no spoilers.
Right.
I'm bringing that up because I have a feeling, like, remember, no spoilers.
I know, I'm holding back here. I really liked it in that it was really fun. There's a ridiculous amount of action in it. Almost to a fault, like to a point it's like, oh my god, this is the longest fight sequence ever. And then it would end, and then a new fight sequence would begin with another person, and then that would be the longest fight sequence ever, and then it would end, and then another one would start, and that would be I was like, oh my god, I just need this to come to a conclusion soon. Like, they were getting too long, like with specific people. Like, it was just taking too long sometimes. Having said that, though, the settings for everything were beautiful. The way it was shot was so well done. Very similar to the second one, where the second one is in the art gallery, the art museum. And they're going through, and there's all the mirrors. And I'm sitting and watching it and going, how the hell did they shoot this scene without getting camera in the mirror as a reflection? Like, there's so many mirrors. And then in this one, and I'm not thinking I'm gonna spoil a lot here when I say this, there's a lot of glass, so it's very similar to the mirror reflection.
There is an action scene that was like, it was almost a little too reminiscent of
that was my other problem with
2.
It was very reminiscent of that scene from chapter 2, and that kind of bothered me. And then that scene also was just so effing long. Oh my god. Still, the fighting done so insanely well, but it just went on for so long, and it was just like, but I will say, as a whole, I did like John Wick 3, surprisingly, and I was kind of with you. I was really trepidatious about it. I really did enjoy the sequence portion of the film with Halle Berry. I thought was really enjoyable. I think my issues came at the end of the movie, quite honestly. I think my issues were, yeah, basically the fighting towards the end of the film just seemed to take forever, and it wasn't for a lot of additional effect. It was a lot of like, this is going on for a long time for really no major reason. Like, there's not, certain fights were just they were just going on so long. I was just like, oh my god, I'm getting bored. I'm actually getting bored. As beautifully choreographed as these are, I'm starting to get bored. And then honestly, the way it ends, I was kind of like, wow, we're just, okay, that's what's happening. All right. I don't know how I feel about that. I was mixed on it then. I'll be honest, I'm still kind of mixed on it now. I feel like it's basically, the best way I could say it, is the first 2 acts I liked. I didn't like the third act.
Of chapter 3.
John Wick chapter 3.
Right.
So, and that's where I'm at with that film.
Yeah, I really like chapter 3.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's chapter 1, or John Wick, their first film, is still, I would say, my favorite.
Yes.
But I think chapter 3 is better than chapter 2.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I do. And I'm going to say that, and I don't necessarily, I understand where you're coming from with the third act, but I enjoyed it. Where I'm going to say I understand is, if there is one kind of problem, I think, with this movie, and especially how much action is in that third act, is that the best action scene in this movie is in the first act.
Yes.
Like, it's very early in the movie.
The knife fight?
And yes, there's a scene in the movie in the very first act that's so good.
So damn good.
but then it's never topped.
No.
And when the third act happens, and especially it gets, I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's like there's this moment of, all right, here we go. It's on.
Game time.
And you think, man, and I remember sitting in the theater thinking, man, there was a scene in the beginning of this movie that was amazing.
Yes.
But now, like, it's going to be insane.
It's going to be even better.
Like, and unfortunately, it doesn't top that scene.
No, it does not.
With that said, it's still, for me, it was extremely still entertaining. Like, it's just not as good as that action scene was. That scene was so good.
No, that scene was insanely good. Like, it was, I guess you could call it basically the first major fight scene of the film.
Yes.
And it really is. And damn it, it's good.
But
so good.
So in that sense, I guess I understand where you're coming from with that third act. Is like, it is a lot of fighting, and it doesn't ever top what we had seen earlier in the movie. So in a lot of ways, you're kind of waiting for, man, is there going to be something that happens that's like even better? And it never comes. But with that said, for me, like, it is still entertaining, and I liked what the movie did. I liked how the movie ended. I was not expecting that kind of ending with this movie. Again, I'm dancing around spoiling anything.
I know.
But,
we're going to have to talk spoilers later at some point about it, but yeah.
I liked it. I liked the movie a lot. And overall, yeah, I think I enjoyed it more than Chapter 2. And I like Chapter 2.
Really?
I like all these movies. I'm very happy with them. And I also was, I don't mean to say also because I don't know if you were, but I was skeptical of Halle Berry from the trailer.
You were.
And she was good in this. And I say that, and I wasn't skeptical of her because I have a problem with her. I like Halle Berry. She's fine. I just remember when she popped up in the trailer.
Just wanted to make sure it was going to mesh well.
It like took me out of the movie, the trailer. It was just like, oh, Halle Berry's in this? I'm like, for some reason, she just doesn't seem like she fits. Like, I remember in the trailer, you see Angelica Houston's in this. And I'm like, oh, she fits. Like, she seems perfect.
She does.
And
quite well, actually.
You know, Lawrence Fishburne is in these movies, and he seems like he fits. But I remember as soon as you saw Halle Berry in the trailer, I'm like, oh. Like, that just feels out of place, but she fits.
No, she does.
She's fine.
Yeah,
I like her.
I like her story arc.
Yep.
Like, I think it's really well. I mean,
and that action scene,
I thought it was really
which
good.
Includes a couple other characters. I'll say is cool because it's something different.
It was. I liked it a lot. I was impressed
that.
with how much I liked it.
So overall, I really liked the movie, and like I said, I think I liked it better than the second one. So.
Okay. Sounds like you liked it better than I did. I still enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. I just have mixed feelings with the way it ended. And I wasn't sold. The end should have sold me more than the beginning.
But I'm still, after watching it, I'm even more dying to get you to watch the 2 Raid movies.
Oh, that's right.
Because there's two actors there was two actors that pop up in the third act who are from the Raid films.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. That does not surprise me at all.
You can probably guess which 2 actors I'm talking about.
That doesn't surprise me at all.
And man, those are good movies. Like, now I haven't watched them in a while. And what's sad is, and Bobby, I say this, Bobby doesn't rewatch anything. Why would he cringe at this? But I don't think I've seen The Raid 2 since I saw it in the theater. And I own it. I have a copy, and I haven't even watched the copy I bought.
We'll have to watch them sometime.
Those movies are so good.
Man, it's summertime. It's hot as blue blazes out there in Florida right now.
What's frustrating though is there are so many movies in the theater. Like,
there's so many movies in the theater.
I want to go see Rocket Man, so I'm already like, yeah, maybe in the next couple nights I want to go see that.
I want to see Rocket Man
because then Dark Phoenix comes out next weekend, and I'm saying this like not that I'm like super pumped about Dark Phoenix, but I do want to see it. I want to see how it is.
I'm Dark Phoenix.
But after my WonderCon experience and the stuff they showed, I'm like, I definitely still have a renewed interest in that movie. My expectations are not high. They're still down there.
Oh no, my expectations are stupid low for that.
Based on the stuff I saw at WonderCon, even if just for the score, I think I talked about this when we talked about WonderCon. Hans Zimmer's score for the stuff that we saw when we were there in Anaheim, I could tell, man, it changed the context of the scenes I was watching. Like, there was a scene we watched, which it's not a spoiler to mention. I mean, because it's seen in the trailer. There's a scene in the trailer you see that they go to space to do like a rescue mission.
Right.
And we saw like that, basically that whole scene. Mm-hmm. I have a feeling they still cut some things out of it, but we basically saw that scene. and his score over it, it was perfect. But I could tell it's like you could do this scene again with a completely other composer and a different score. It would completely change the tone of the scene I'm watching. And his score is just, it really like gives you this like impending doom, like about her. And it works. And I'm like, man, this is making me more interested in watching this movie. So that's, don't get me wrong, I'm not exactly pumped about Dark Phoenix. But it's also the end of this whole kind of franchise. This is over. Like,
I know.
Any X-Men we have from now on are going to be basically rebooted by the MCU, and it's going to be completely new.
Right. I mean, I have so many issues with Dark Phoenix right now, and I haven't even seen this film. I think my big thing is, and this is just me personally, when it comes to the X-Men, I love the X-Men. I read a lot of Marvel comics in my life. Like, I read Thor, and I read Spider-Man, I read Iron Man. Like, I love Marvel. The X-Men were my thing. And in the late 80s, early 90s, that's the X-Men that I know and love from reading and also from the show that was on the animated show. And so I know these stories very well. And so for me, it's hard for me to see this variation because I'm like, I don't know how I feel about this. It's so different. And I don't know. I'm just so mixed on it. And I'm just really kind of trying to deal with it. Like, for me, I'm just like, it's just because I know the comics so well. Like, I read like a 7-year span of X-Men multiple times. So like, I know X-Men really well for that time period, and that's what this is. And so it's like, I have a thing inside me. Like, I know what happens. So I'm trying to like be okay with this. And I see this, I'm just like, I've been so let down by Apocalypse that it's hard. It's hard for me. Like, I'm seeing it because I love the X-Men. I feel like this series has had hits and they've had misses. And I hope this does well, because for it to basically come to a conclusion makes me sad if it's not good.
Right.
Because I love the X-Men so much. Like, it's very, it's like when X-Men, what was it? United? What was the third one?
The third of this current?
The original one.
Oh, it was, man, is it X-Men United?
Well, it ended badly.
Yeah, no, it did not end well.
It ended badly. It did not end well. And so I'm like, oh, don't let this end badly. You know, like it
was X-Men United.
Okay.
That was X2.
No, X2 I liked.
X2, X-Men United.
3 was...
Man, what was it called?
Last Stand.
Yes.
There it is.
Man, we can do this.
I can do this. I'm an X-Men person. Well, I don't like that movie that much. I don't watch it that much, so I don't know the title that much. United, I like a lot, actually. So this one, I'm trying not to have expectations, but it's almost impossible for me to not have expectations for this. Like, it's very hard for me to completely disassociate my feelings for this. Does that make sense? I don't know. I'm trying, but no, there's a lot of movies coming out, and honestly, there's even just a lot of kids movies coming out. Like, next weekend is Life of Pets 2. At the end of the month, we have Toy Story 4.
I still haven't seen Detective Pikachu. I want to see that.
You still haven't seen Detective Pikachu.
I want to take my son to see it. You want to take your son
to go see that.
But I want to see it.
I was going to say, you still haven't seen Detective Pikachu yet.
We walked out of Godzilla the other day, which now that we're going to get to that next.
We need to talk about Godzilla. we need to talk about Godzilla so much.
We walked out of that, and I'm looking at posters at the movie theater, and I'm like, damn, there's a lot of movies in the theater I kind of want to see. I'm like,
so many movies.
Like Rocket Man and Detective Pikachu, and damn it, the summer.
Well, it's not so hard if you don't have responsibilities like yard work or like just hanging out and enjoying time with your children, like, or going to see a soccer game or like, whatever.
Doing other things. playing games on the new computer.
Yeah, the new computer you built.
All right, yeah, my voice is going, and we need to talk about Godzilla.
We need to.
I can tell my voice is like, man, you're talking a lot. This needs to stop.
Aw, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
Well, what's funny is I feel like each movie we talk about tonight, I've been like, I know nothing about these things. And again, I know nothing about Godzilla. I'm like the new kid this evening. Like,
so you never saw the first one, and I say the first one of this current franchise.
Right. We'll be clear. The first one is a new franchise. So when was that last one? When did that come out? What was that? 2010?
No, it wasn't that long ago. It was. You're looking behind you like you expect a Godzilla poster.
No, because you have Pacific Rim. What was the other poster you used to have up here? You switched everything. Did you have a Godzilla up here?
No, I never had a Godzilla poster.
Huh.
Godzilla came out in 2014.
Okay, well, I never saw that one.
I did, but you haven't seen it. And then actually Kong Skull Island is a part of this universe.
Which I have not seen.
And neither of us have seen that. That came out in 2017. So just a couple of years ago. And now we have Godzilla King of the Monsters, which just came out this weekend, which did not do well at the box office. Have you seen the box office numbers?
No.
I say that, and it's number one. But
I was expecting it to do really well.
So before I say what the results are, like, I'd heard the tracking, and then I know you kind of hear it could, there's a good chance it might do a little more than that. And then we went and saw our showing, which was in Dolby Cinema. And I mean, I don't know if it was sold out, but it
was pretty well packed in there.
It was pretty well packed, but I don't know. Dolby Cinema is weird because the seats are so big and everyone's kind of so spread apart. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to tell how packed it is if you're not like looking around.
Well, there's that high railing, so you really can't see below you and you really don't see behind you.
It's not like when you're in a regular movie theater and you can see everybody.
You have a better sense of what's happening. You kind of
can't see everybody.
Right.
So it didn't feel packed, but you're right. It probably was sold out, or I don't know.
At one point, I did kind of lift my butt up enough to kind of go, yeah, it's decently packed in here.
Right. Anyway, yeah, no, it fell below studio expectations. Studio expectations were, I think, 50 to 55 million, which seemed low.
Sounds reasonable.
Which seemed
that sounds
already
crazy
reasonable.
Low.
The movie ended up at 49.
Really? That's it?
And I mean, when you think about the Godzilla in 2014,
wow.
Godzilla in 2014 opened to like 95, I want to say.
Oh, holy sh!
93.2. And then Kong Skull Island opened at 61.
See, and in my head, I was thinking this would have been 55 or 56 million. So I'm surprised it didn't even hit 50. Wow.
Well, yeah, it barely missed 50.
Wow, that's sad.
And Aladdin is like right there. I mean, that's in its second week. So it dropped 53%, but it's right there at number 2 at 42 million. So, I mean,
Aladdin was pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to the other show, we both liked Aladdin a lot.
Yeah, no, I liked Aladdin.
That's not that surprising.
So, Godzilla, King of the Monsters. You hadn't seen the first movie. You haven't seen Kong Skull Island.
I've not seen Kong Skull Island. So I went to this.
And in general, the vibe I get I say the vibe, you've basically outright said these kind of movies are not your thing. Like kaiju monster films are not something it sounds like you kind of grew up with and you're not into.
I mean, it's hard to say what I'm about to say. I am not the biggest monster film fan. Having said that, it depends on your definition of monster films is what I can say. If we talk about like old school Universal Studios monsters, super in. But when you talk about like big monsters that are here to destroy your city, no, not so much. And I have seen some Godzilla films. My brothers, God bless them, they used to love watching Godzilla movies. So there'd be times we'd sit down, I'd watch a Godzilla movie from the 50s or the 60s or the 70s or whenever it was, yeah, like I've seen a few. Could I name them? Hell no. Can I tell you what each like monster's name was? No, I know, Mothra, and then like, what's the other one, the fire one that was in this movie?
Rodan.
Like kind of more the major ones I know of. Yeah, that one on your t-shirt.
Yeah, I'm wearing a t-shirt with all of them right now.
The metal one. I know the metal one. I saw that one.
Mega
Godzilla. I've seen that one. Like, I've seen them. I don't know the titles of each one. You know, it's bad dubbing, whatever. It wasn't really my thing, but you know, some days it's raining outside and you wind up watching it because you only own a TV in your house, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s. Anyways, okay, so I went into this kind of going, okay, hit me, let's do this. Like, come at me, Godzilla. Like, I want to be amazed by the things I'm about to see. And on one side of things, I was really amazed by some of the things I saw. I enjoyed a lot of stuff, actually. I can almost say I was pleasantly surprised by this film, quite honestly. Do I love this film? Hell no. But I had fun watching it. And that's really, I think, the whole spirit of the monster films. It was fun. Scary fun in a weird way. Like, when you put things in a context, you're thinking about, like, the world coming to an end because of these creatures. It's kind of weird, and it's totally fantastical, and it's all in fantasy. It's all in good fun. I will say, like, seeing Godzilla, that was like, damn, that's Godzilla. Like, and I say that, and I saw, what was the Godzilla movie that came out with Matthew Broderick?
Oh, we try to forget that one.
Well, I know everybody tries to forget that one, but I have seen that one.
Most people have.
So it's like, that Godzilla was like, nah, it's Godzilla, whatever. This was Godzilla. Like, I'm like, okay, that's Godzilla. That is the most impressive representation of Godzilla I think I've ever seen in my life. And it was like, okay, it's really hard to not be impressed by the CGI in this. And just the way that they designed him, his look, his appearance, his ability, like the whole like blue lighting to then do the thing. I was like, this is really awesome. The sound it even makes is it's like a battery charging up, like whoop whoop whoop. Like, I was like, this is kind of cool. I'm not gonna lie, this is kind of fun. Like, I was kind of getting into it. Yeah, no, I had fun. And the sad part about this is I still kind of felt like watching an old school Godzilla movie where I almost felt like the voices were dubbed. And these were most of them American actors. And I'm like, these are good actors. And this is so bad. The acting is not good. And I like some of these actors. Like, I'm like, Ken Watanabe, I like. Not an American. Well, he's kind of an American actor now. I guess you can consider him. He's American, well known. You know, he's a Japanese.
He is known to American audiences.
Right? Yeah, that's right. Okay.
What was the first thing he really did? It was like Last Samurai, I think.
Oh, it's just such a good movie. Sorry, sorry, moment. Yeah. So it's like I'm watching him, and I'm like, oh, kid, you know, and like I'm not a Kyle Chandler fan, so that wasn't surprising that I was impressed with him. But, you know, like, there's some legit actors up there. And I'm like, this is so bad. But then the monsters came on screen and it was awesome again. And so I was like, this is great. I love this. And I have to say, like, watching Mothra get, like, you know, birthed and everything, like, that was really cool watching that happen. And even, like, the cocooning and the uncocooning and watching Mothra do what she does. I was like, well, this is pretty sweet. I'm liking this. Like, when the monsters were on screen, I was actually pretty happy with it. It's basically when the humans got there, I was like, God, this is so stupid. Like, it was so dumb. But I liked it. It was fun. The effects are amazing. Watching monsters fight each other, pretty cool. Otherwise, yeah, I can kind of leave it.
I'm happy. I'm pleasantly surprised that you enjoyed it as much as you did. I didn't expect you to.
Really?
No. I still expected you to be like, oh, this is stupid.
I mean, I don't know. I think I was trying just to have fun with the whole idea of the monsters, like, existing.
I mean, you either enjoyed it or you didn't, or you enjoyed certain parts of it or you didn't. And that sounds like that's where you are. You enjoyed watching the monster part of this movie.
I enjoyed the monsters. They were pretty cool.
The human story aspect to it, you were like, oh, I could do without this.
Right.
And I'm happy that you enjoyed any aspect of it, honestly. I'm surprised. That's awesome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Where were they? Over Mexico, the Mexican section, when the three-headed Hydra fought with Rodan, and then Rodan bowed down to him, and the three-headed Ghidorah, thank you. He's on top of the volcano. I was like, okay, that's a really cool shot. Like it's hard to not be impressed by that shot. I'm like, okay, that's pretty awesome.
Right.
It's hard to not admit that. And any person I think could look at that and go, well, that's a pretty big bad guy.
Right.
It's an impressive shot. Like it was an amazing. It's pretty cool. But yeah, there's other aspects, and I won't go into spoilers. But there's other things that happened to me. I was like, oh god, this is so dumb. It was just like, this is painful. But overall, I had fun with it. I like the monsters fighting. Give me more of that. Give me more of the amazing looking Godzilla. That Godzilla, it just was. I will watch the first one just because I want to watch more Godzilla right
I'll
now.
be curious to see what you think of it.
I would like to watch more Godzilla.
Because that one is a polarizing movie.
Okay. I've heard that. No, people love it or they hate it.
I mean, Bobby has been pumped. Unfortunately, Bobby and Yasha couldn't be here. But Bobby has been pumped about this movie, just as I have.
Right.
And I haven't heard yet what he thinks of this movie. But he is not a fan of the first movie.
Oh, that's right.
No, he's not. Huh. And I differ there.
Oh no, you liked the first movie.
I liked it. I trust me, I understand the complaints, and I do. And I say this, and I'll briefly go over my background as a Godzilla fan, if you want to call it that. I grew up, I think my mom introduced me to watching Godzilla movies. And I think that's my first memory of watching any type of foreign language film was a Godzilla movie. I have this memory of watching a Godzilla movie and being able to tell or being told, I don't know how old I was, that, this is dubbed. And actually, I think that was my first even experience going, I don't like dubbing. I'd rather just read subtitles.
Right. No.
Yeah. And yeah, I definitely watched a few, and I remember liking them as a kid. But I like Godzilla films, and I definitely have a background with them. But I'm also not going to act like I am some Godzilla expert. I don't know the names of all the monsters, and I don't remember the names of a lot of the films, if any of them at this point. And I just remember I enjoyed them, and I saw that Godzilla film with Matthew Broderick as well, and also was like, oh god, this is terrible. And
I think I even saw that in theater.
I did too.
I think because I was probably working in the theater, but yeah, I think I even saw it in theater. Crazy.
So when these movies came, it was just I'm not like a diehard fan, but I'm enough of a Godzilla fan that I'm excited about this.
I get that.
And I liked what Gareth Edwards tried to do, attempted to do with that first movie. It worked for me. I mean, I get the complaint that there's not enough Godzilla in it, and there's not enough just kaiju in general. There's not enough fighting of Godzilla in the movie. It's a lot of human story. But I like what he tried to do, where he's really trying to put you in the position of a human observing this craziness.
Okay. That makes sense.
And it makes sense, especially if you think about his first film, Monsters, fitting, which you should see. It's very good. And Monsters is a film. It's been a while since I've watched it, but it's been some type of apocalypse or something, and basically it's set where these people are trying to make their way from Mexico
I've seen clips of that.
to the U.S. and there are these kind of alien monsters. There's been an alien invasion or something.
I know what you're talking about now.
So after that movie, you can see why he was picked to do Godzilla.
Right.
And I liked what he did. A lot of times he sets up these scenes where people are seeing footage on TV of the fight happening, but you can hear it in the background and stuff. And it's just really trying to put you in that perspective of what it would really be like to be in San Francisco when this fight is happening, which means you're not just getting shots of a kaiju fight,
Right. Like the old movies did.
Right. It's not like an old film. It's trying to be more relevant, I think, to an audience of today.
Which reminds me of Cloverfield.
Yes.
And I like Cloverfield, which is a whole nother topic.
Yes.
But
That's a lot like that.
That's what Cloverfield was doing. It's basically, what would you do if New York City was under attack from aliens, and how your evening would evolve, basically seeing it, but also just trying to live.
But you're experiencing it from like a person's point of view.
Right. You are in a human being POV. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
Okay. Which makes sense just because that's how this movie picks up from.
So then this movie comes along, and I also have not seen Kong Skull Island.
Which now I'm curious to see, by the way. I don't have high hopes for it, but I'm curious.
I'm curious too, and I was curious to see it when it came out. I just never did.
Oh, yeah.
I meant
no
to.
desire to see it.
I was curious.
But now I
And I'm not a big Kong fan, to be honest. I don't have a problem with Kong. It's just, I don't know. That's never been my thing.
I think I've seen as many King Kong films as I have with Godzilla ones. I've seen a lot of the old ones. Anyways.
But,
sorry.
So I've been pumped about this, because this definitely is, okay, this is taking the perspective of, like, you see in the trailers, like, they're all here. Like,
they have promoted that this is going to be everybody.
Like, basically all of the monsters are in this movie. It's like, oh, shit. Like, we're basically doing the opposite of what the first movie did. And we're just, you guys wanted more monsters? Fine, we're doing monsters.
We're doing them all.
We're doing them all. So I've been pumped about this movie. And I say that as someone who liked the first movie. And I was meh about this.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
This was a meh movie for me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You didn't even like the monster fighting or anything?
Well, I mean, my problem with this movie, in a lot of ways, I think I have the similar reaction you do to this movie. But it's funny. Like, this movie seems to be going out of its way. You watch all these trailers, and it's like all the monsters are in this movie. And I guess technically they are.
Yeah, technically, but it's only
but there's still a lot of human story to this film.
So much human
And don't
story.
get me wrong, I get that of course there needs to be. I mean, we're not just gonna like turn the camera on and like, okay, monsters fighting, but still, it was like, for a movie that pushed itself so much on being about like showing that there's so many different monsters in this movie. Really, this movie is about Godzilla versus Ghidorah. And Rodan pops up, and so does Mothra. They have more important roles, but otherwise the rest of them are just completely,
it's all background.
They're not there.
They're not there. They give a snapshot of what else is happening.
They are basically just the shots you see in the trailer of like the other monsters and how they're appearing.
That's it.
That is all you see, with the exception of a shot at the end. But that's it. And otherwise, there's still seem to be lacking enough just like kaiju fighting, like for me. And yes, you're right. Like, you have a lot of really great actors in this movie, and they're great actors, which tells you if they're not acting well, it's the direction. Like, we've seen this before in other movies with great actors and they don't act well. And I'm like, man, I guess this is just, they're not being directed well. Cause it's just, I think they're also just working with a script that's not very good.
Oh yeah. The script is horrible.
And it's just bad. Like, I don't know. Like, you've heard where I come from going into this movie. I'm not a diehard Godzilla fan, but I'm enough of a fan that I feel like this film is still walking this middle road of like, it's trying to be like a classic Godzilla film, but it's also trying to, be a relevant film for 2019, and it doesn't do it well. And I'm going to point to a movie that I feel like does it well, and that's Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim is a movie that it's like, if you want a monster film, like, but it's not taking itself too seriously, because there's times where I think this movie is taking itself too seriously.
Yes.
Pacific Rim, I feel like, walks the balance perfectly. And that's why I enjoy it. It's just fun. I mean, there's times in Pacific Rim the acting is not good, but it's like it almost feels like it fits in Pacific Rim in a way. I don't know how to explain it, because I'm saying this because I know you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, I haven't seen either Pacific Rim.
I'd be curious to see what you would think of Pacific Rim now that you've watched this movie. Like,
okay.
And I know you haven't been a fan of watching it, and
No.
And that's why I haven't been like, Michelle, you've got to see Pacific Rim, because I don't want to push you to watch a movie that you're just going to shit all over. like, Not that I'm going to care because I like Pacific Rim. And
Right,
if
you
don't
like what
it,
you like. You know, it's fine.
But now that you've watched Godzilla and you've said, oh, I liked these monster fights. They were impressive. I'd be curious to see what you think of Pacific Rim. Now, the thing is, I will say, like, it sounds like some of the things you like about this monster film is that the monsters look so incredibly good, and they do. And in Pacific Rim, no, they are not.
Right.
They're not quite. The effects are not quite as like high end, realistic as like how Godzilla looks in this and some of the other monsters. Right. And that's another thing, by the way. Like Godzilla looks incredibly good.
He's insanely awesome looking.
And actually, I really like the way Rodan looked.
Rodan looked good. And I knew exactly what I was about to say. I know
Ghidorah was like at times,
yes!
like when like I remember the shots in the trailer
yes!
when the extended trailer that we saw with the heads coming up out of the ground for the first time, and I think it's the tough part is we're so used to as Game of Thrones fans, like like I love the way those dragons in Game of Thrones look.
Oh, the dragons in Game of Thrones look amazing.
And then these dragon kind of heads are like, eh.
It was like it was like they. And I get what they're doing. They're trying to take the way the dragons look on Asian print from Asian old ancient history stories and pictures. And they're trying to basically make those look like what he's supposed to look like. And I get that. However, it was almost too CGI-y.
Yeah, it didn't look quite as
like
realistic.
Godzilla looks realistic.
He looks real.
Like, holy shit, Godzilla look. Like, if Godzilla was real, that's what Godzilla looks like, guys. Like, that was so cool to see. And Rodan, even, awesome. And I will say there's a shot of Mothra. And I will say Mothra was pretty fantastical as a whole, but there's a shot, and it's towards the end. Mothra comes out from the clouds, and the sun is behind her, and she is like digging, going towards Rodan. I'm like, that looks like classic Godzilla film, and it looks so good. It was so cool to see that shot of her coming in to attack. I was like, that's really cool. But then, yeah, like the big bad of this film doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It's not done well.
No.
At least not as well as the other monsters, I'll put it that way.
There's definitely shots where Ghidorah looks great. But
yes.
Like close up, especially like of the heads.
The close up of the heads, yeah.
Yeah, it looks a little too CG.
It's a little too CG.
So
I agree.
Overall, yeah, I don't know. It was meh. I was bummed by the movie.
Okay. I'm
sorry.
sorry.
I have to say, you asked me, I think the first movie's better.
Well, see, now I'm concerned about me watching the first movie because what I liked about this was the monster fighting. So I'm concerned now that I'm going to watch this first one and be like, yeah, this was crap.
You could land either way at this point.
I think I probably could.
I'm curious for you to see it and see where you go.
We obviously need to watch Kong Skull Island, and we can't get into spoilers right now, but it's definitely a theme that's happening.
I mean, it's been outright said. I mean, there's no spoilers there.
True. That's true.
They've basically been pointing down the road that like this is going to end up with the Godzilla versus Kong kind of thing.
That's true. So now we need to watch
depending on
Skull
box
Island.
office, we'll see if that actually happens. But worldwide box office, this movie could definitely make its money back.
I think worldwide it'll make its money back for sure. I think unfortunately domestically it's not doing well.
But like I said, I'm curious to see what you think of the first movie if you watch it. And yeah, if you want to, I'd be curious to see now that you've seen. Maybe watch the first movie, and now that you've watched these movies, I'd be curious to see what you would think of like Pacific Rim, comparatively speaking. Pacific Rim 2, you could totally skip that. But like Pacific Rim, I feel like again, it walks a balance well, where that is a much more entertaining kaiju film than these have been overall.
I'd be curious, and like I said, the thing is I will admit, as a whole, I'm not the biggest monster movie person. But then, like, I'm one of the few people that I liked Cloverfield. Like, I thought it was cool. I liked it.
I did too.
And most people did not.
No, I know.
Like that movie.
Well, I mean, because anything, it's the same complaint as the first Godzilla film. People went into Cloverfield, I think, thinking it was going to be this crazy, like, alien invasion, big monster movie, and they were going to see a lot of monster, basically. And you see almost no monster in Cloverfield.
Pretty much.
Basically, it is a kind of like what I'm trying to explain that the first Godzilla film is like. It's
Right.
like putting you in the shoes of like being at the business end of this monster.
It's like watching Superman fight Zod and destroy New York City.
Right. I guess.
Look at me go.
I guess so, yeah.
Well, when you put in perspective of Batman v Superman, that's basically what they're trying to... Anyways, we're going down a pathway. I know you're not going to...
So I think we're done with Godzilla, and I would say we're done. But I'm curious to hear what you thought of the Game of Thrones documentary.
Oh, okay.
So last night we watched, it came out a week ago.
I like how you say we. I feel like I watched it and you did other things and kind of watched it.
I watched it. I was doing things, but I was facing the TV. I watched it. So last night we watched Game of Thrones, The Last Watch, which was the HBO documentary that they aired a week after the last episode, basically in the same time slot as Game of Thrones. And it covers season 8, the production of season 8. Mm-hmm. It's a fly in the wall documentary style. There's really no kind of talking head interviews in this kind of thing. Mm-mm. It is straight up like fly in the wall style documentary making, behind the scenes kind of setup. What'd you think of it?
I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say here. What I didn't like was that it felt very scripted for a documentary. And that bothered me. But what I did like was I liked, there's moments in that I really enjoyed. I enjoy watching, not surprisingly, the table read and watching everybody's reactions to how their characters' conclusions are. And that was enjoyable to see that footage, I will say. And I liked seeing, how kind of behind the scenes, how they built King's Landing. That was hell of impressive. That isn't an undertaking I can't even begin to fathom. And it was 7 or 9 months. How long did it say it took? Forever?
I think it was 7.
That is a lot
to build that
work.
Set.
To build a set for an episode, if not maybe kind of 2. And then also to make that episode and basically blow it up. It was impressive to watch that go down, like to see them build that. And I think it was interesting getting like the makeup artist perspective of things. I enjoyed kind of seeing that, like her going like, just, we're still also living a life somehow in the middle of all this chaos. I don't know. At the same time, like, it just seemed like...
When you say scripted, what do you mean by that?
It felt kind of scripted.
Like you were, like, for instance, I'll use the makeup artist as an example. Almost like they were getting her to say certain things about her, like her child.
They really focused on her family aspect a lot.
Yeah.
And it just kind of seemed like they were specifically getting certain things out of certain people. It just seemed like...
Because I didn't get that vibe at all.
Okay. To me, it seemed like HBO was specifically going to people for different things. But
I mean, they were. There's no doubt the documentary ends up focusing on certain people a lot.
Right.
But go ahead.
And in a weird way, the one guy who's a background actor, it was kind of funny to watch.
Who they focus on a lot.
Who they focus on a lot. And there's times it felt kind of scripted there, too. But overall, it was entertaining to watch him because he was just so freaking into it. But it's at the same time, like... I'm not faulting him for that. Like, Jesus, if I had that opportunity, I'd be super excited and geeking out and into it too.
That guy thinks he's a Stark. Like, he is like straight up like, whoa, you're wearing a Bolton jacket.
Whoa, Boltons, back the hell away from me.
Like he's taking it a step over.
Okay, no, in certain situations he does, but I will say in his like,
no, that guy was great. Don't
his
get me wrong.
Happiness, excitement.
No, he was awesome.
He was awesome. And I get it. Like him just being like overly excited all the time. Like I get, like I would be overly excited. I'd be shitting my pants of excitement all the time. Like I was like, I get it. I do get it. Like that is an amazing experience he's had and he will have for the rest of his life. And it'll be fun. I don't know. It was in a weird way at the same time though. Kind of boring to watch.
No,
that's my take on it.
I get what you're saying because
I was interested, but also
I watched
bored.
it as a Game of Thrones fan, and it's 2 hours.
It is,
and I agree with you that it is because of the way it's done. I do think it's more boring than it needs to be.
It is a little boring
because, and I made a point to bring up that this is a fly in the wall style documentary. You are just basically watching people like kind of go through the daily routine of making season 8. Yep. And there's a lot of cool stuff in this documentary if you're a Game of Thrones fan to see.
There are.
And it's also, I think it's good to see for a lot of people to really, even me, I know what, excuse me. I mean, I know what it's like to produce this kind of show or film, but it's easy to forget. And watching this documentary, it's like a major reminder of like, man, this is a huge undertaking.
A deeper appreciation.
Like, it really gives you an appreciation for like the amount of work, how many people devoted so much time to this show, like, and obviously they're all getting paid, but yes, like this was huge. Like you mentioned the set, that building a set for that long for like one episode.
Like, to blow it up on top of that.
To destroy it, like over 7 months and just so much detail. It's beautiful and it's crazy. And like, it's easy to just, for all general audiences, just watch a show and go, wow, that was awesome. And it's all just CG, blah, blah, blah. Like, no, like not everything is anymore. And it's a lot of work. And that's why like people who just steal this stuff, it can be irritating, you know? And try to watch it for free. Like, no, there's a lot of people that are employed by this kind of endeavor, and it's important to see it for that reason. But you seem like you want to jump in. Go ahead.
So what I want to say is, like, think about how much time and effort you put into one costume that you make for Dragon Con.
Right.
And think about the work that they put in on just a basic background person's costume, let alone a lead star costume. Like, the amount of man hours that go into making these, and leather working, so much leather working. And that alone is impressive. And then if you think of the sets, that's a whole nother level. And then you think of the makeup, that's a whole nother, like, it's insane. And then if you really think about it, what was interesting was learning that the makeup artists, basically, they put a bid in. They gave a couple of conceptual ideas and they bid to even win the spot to be the makeup artists for the show. Like, that's insane. Do you know what I mean? Like, think about that. And they were saying, like, they're like, we really were relatively unknown makeup artists. Like, this basically was our first major, like, we're going to see what happens. And then they got it. And they both were like, wow, we're shitting our pants. We don't even have chairs for people to sit in to put their makeup on, let alone assistants to do it.
Right.
And they were like, that's insane if you think about it. Their lives completely turned upside down that fast. It's impressive. It's amazing. Like, the undertaking, the sweat and blood that went into the show. People just don't appreciate.
No, yeah. So it's good from that, in that respect, watching it and getting another sense of, oh man, how much work this show was. But I agree with you in that as documentary, behind the scenes, movie making, TV making documentaries go, for a 2-hour documentary, I was like, I feel like this could have been done in a way that wasn't so boring.
Yeah, I agree. It was kind of boring.
And I, especially considering the setup of this show, it's easy to compare it to the appendices documentaries for the Lord of the Rings films.
Oh, it's super easy to compare to that. I will agree with you.
Have you watched all those?
I've not. Just the...
Have you watched any of them?
Fellowship.
Okay.
So...
those are, like, for anyone who, like, I remember... I was buying the extended editions every year, those 3 years when the Lord of the Rings films extended editions were coming out. And I remember Aaron and I, who's been on this podcast in the past, my roommate at the time, like, we were immediately dying to watch those behind the scenes documentaries. We were living in LA at the time, and they were incredibly good. And I feel like that's what this documentary needed. It needed that balance of, like, that fly in the wall style cut in with kind of interviews of, the showmakers and actors. I think it kind of needed that balance to make it a little more entertaining. Yeah. And instead it was just straight up fly in the wall.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh man, like, I don't know. It did make it a little boring overall.
I don't like using the word boring, but it was a little boring.
I say that like I imagine it would be boring for a lot of people. Like for me, I enjoyed watching it because we're on a podcast, so we love this kind of stuff. So watching that for 2 hours is fine, and we love Game of Thrones. But even me as a Game of Thrones fan, I was watching it going, this could be done better.
Yeah, no. HBO could have thrown a smidge more into this one.
Yeah.
Especially because we've seen HBO documentaries and we know what they could put into them. Like, you're really going to tell me that a documentary about your own show isn't getting that?
And then it was weird the things they kind of excluded. Like, they really, like you already mentioned, they focused on certain people and they kept kind of going back to them. And then when it came to the show directors, they really focused on David Nutter. I think that's his name, right?
Yeah, Nutter, yeah. And he did 3 of the 6. So he did half of the episodes, if you think about it.
He directed 1, 2, and 4.
4.
And he was the director previously. I think he missed the 2 seasons just before this because of the mentions in the documentary, like back surgery and stuff. Yeah. But he directed the Red Wedding episode.
Yeah.
He's been around for some major Game of Thrones episodes.
He's had some major episodes.
But like I don't have his name in front of me. I forget his name. But the director of episodes 3 and 5 of season 8, the 2 battle episodes.
Right.
He was also the director of Battle of the Bastards.
Yep.
So obviously that's his thing.
Yes.
I was expecting, some stuff with him. And I don't think he was ever even mentioned.
No.
Like, nothing with him.
Like, and he was one that did the train, the
loot train.
The loot train battle. Like, so... And his name wasn't mentioned. I'm thinking, well, his episode was kind of, I don't know, how should we say, the apex of the whole season?
Well, because this documentary definitely went over the Long Night, which was the battle with the dead army and everything, like the Army of the Dead. And they definitely obviously talked about the other big battle episode, but they never, I guess, it was interesting that they didn't at all focus on the other directors, like him.
It was weird.
Mainly.
And honestly, as weird as this is going to sound, I was kind of like, they're not focusing on it. They're not talking to the other directors. But even then, like, I would have been interested to have them have a conversation with, like, say, the cinematographer for the actual, like, battle, the one with the White Walkers. Like, I'd be curious to have a conversation with that cinematographer. Do you know what I mean? And be like, so what was your visuals with thinking about this and this and this? And, like, what was your thought processes and your plans and how you collaborated with the director to kind of get this scene and how you kind of went, hey, I want to do it like this. What do you think? And like, I wanted to hear that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I want to see, how did you go? I had this idea. Hold up. Look at this.
Right.
If we shot, like, I want to hear that discussion.
Yeah.
That I wish I'd seen more of.
Yeah. But I mean, because the other thing I would think of is I was surprised they didn't do more just kind of talking with the actors.
Yeah, they really don't.
They really don't. But I guess that's the decision, was that's not what they were going for. And I mean, one cool thing is that the documentary seems to be going out of its way to also focus on the fact that, I guess the production was based in Belfast. Mm-hmm. Yep. And it's kind of taking that perspective of people who are from this area who are really like benefiting from this production and working in this production. Like that makeup artist, I don't know if she was from Belfast, but somewhere in the UK. In the UK.
Yeah.
And then like they focus a lot on the food truck or whatever, the woman who runs the food truck. And
she's a Belfast person. That's her.
We brought up you brought up the extra who appeared in a lot of episodes, who was this diehard fan who lives probably, I guess, in the area.
And now he's a tour
he's
guide
like a
guy.
Game of Thrones tour guide guy.
I mean,
so
it's got to make a buck.
It is cool that the documentary focused on like, look, it was shot out here. And this is what it was like for these people locally to work on this show. But yeah, for a 2-hour documentary, it was just, I felt like it could have been.
It was meh.
Yeah, it was meh.
It was meh. I will say it was funny though watching them. They're like, wow, we go through so much effort to try to like put walls up and keep people from like getting nosy about situations. And there's like a carnival or something that happens, a seasonal like, you know, town carnival fair or whatever. And a freaking Ferris wheel goes up next to the King's Landing set. Like, wouldn't you just be like, wow, can we just light it on fire now? Or like, what's the point? Like, it was hilarious because you could tell they all were like, oh, wow, there's a freaking Ferris wheel.
There's nothing we do about that. They have all these like signs up of like no drones in the area and stuff. But like, you can't keep people off a Ferris wheel with cameras.
Especially because it's like, knowing how you build a Ferris wheel, in a carnival setting, you can build it overnight. And they're like, wow, it basically wasn't here yesterday, and we walked into work today, and there's a freaking Ferris wheel right on the edge of our freaking set. Like, what do we do? Like, I would have been like, wow, okay, well, I guess I'm not working today. Yeah. Throw the papers in the air and move on.
So anyway, I was curious to hear what you thought of that.
It was meh. It was a meh documentary.
Yeah.
Which is sad considering how much love I think it should have been given to the show.
No, I love the show. I know you and I fall differently, I think, than a lot of people who keep bitching and complaining about the end of the show. But I
think we do. I know we do.
Oh, I know we do.
I know that we fall differently.
But I think there's also a lot of people that loved it. They're just not as vocal as the people who didn't.
Right. So. Yeah, I think there's that too.
But anyways, my voice is done.
I know. We've had a long show, actually. I'm surprised you and I have talked so much.
Yeah, I'm not going to talk tomorrow, by the way. So I'm going to use the pad and start writing notes.
A whiteboard. You're just going to walk around with a whiteboard.
Get one of those things that hanging around my neck, like Anthony Hopkins and Legends of the Fall. I'm going to do that.
Oh, it's Legends of the Fall. I hit a blackboard.
Yep. I'm going to write.
Ow. Have you seen that movie a lot?
No.
Wow. I barely remember that. I've seen that movie like
I've seen
at
it a couple
least over
times.
6 times.
You have? I think I've seen it 2 or 3 times.
Yes. I have a friend that loves that movie. Actually, not as much as another film. It's very similar, but yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. I remember, I think when I saw it was a date night with somebody in high school.
It's a Brad Pitt film. What's your thoughts on Brad in that one?
It's been a while. I'm not gonna say.
Okay. I'm just curious.
I think I remember liking him in it.
Most people do like him in that film.
Yeah, I think I did.
I'm just curious.
It's funny when you bring up the Brad Pitt thing. It's like, I can remember all these movies I do like him in, but for someone like me who says, oh, I'm kind of 50-50 on Brad Pitt sometimes, I can't think of examples of where I don't like him. But I know there's movies where I'm like, meh, he's weird.
Yeah, I get that though.
Anyway.
I get that. Anyways.
We're going to get out of here.
Yeah.
With that, email us. Let you know what you thought of the show. Feedback at flickereffect.com. Instagram and Twitter, Flicker_effect. This show will be on YouTube without video. But like I said, in the future, I think we're going to start shooting video for even Flicker Effect. You'll only be able to see me and Michelle.
Right. I was going to say, it's only going to be the us Florida
Unfortunately,
crew.
Bobby and Yasha are the California crew. And maybe one day if they can start shooting video on their end and I can start splicing it together or something. But in the meantime,
are you quitting your job soon?
I'm just going to start editing video all the time.
I was like, wait a second. How much time do you have?
I mean, we're going to start making tons of money with this. I don't need another job.
Right. Okay.
But anyway, right now, you can listen to the show on YouTube. YouTube.com/Flicker Effect. Or, hey, we're a podcast, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
So, hey, flickereffect.com. You can stream the podcast. You can download it. You can go to iTunes podcast, Apple Podcasts.
Everywhere.
Basically, if you use a podcast app, if you search for Flicker Effect, you should be able to find us.
We're on all the things now.
Yes.
And I say that not jokingly. We're on all the things.
Well, no, it's Google Play Music, iHeartRadio app.
Yeah, we are on iHeartRadio.
We are.
We're super cool with the millennials now.
Is it iHeartRadio a millennial thing?
It is. I did not realize this, but it is. It's such a millennial thing. I I'm not.
Oh, we're gonna go 15 more minutes. What are you talking about?
Seriously.
That's a millennial thing.
No. So you and I are in the age of we listen to Apple, right? Or Google, but mostly Apple. No. Millennials listen to iHeartRadio.
You mean the app? And we're talking about iHeartRadio. They own like every radio station.
Right. But like that's how they listen to radio stations now.
They just use the app.
Like you and I enjoy Spotify. I still, on rare occasion, enjoy Pandora. I have never used iHeartRadio, and let me tell you, I am apparently a dinosaur now. Like
I've even used the iHeartRadio app.
I talk to people at work, and God bless these cute kids. They're adorable.
Kids.
But I
probably
feel
like 30-year-olds.
They're younger, but they listen to iHeartRadio. I was like, is this really a thing? And it is. It's a thing. It's like a mind-blowing thing in my office. I'm like, wow.
Well, you should tell those people to look
so
for us in the
old.
iHeartRadio app.
I know. I feel so old. I just don't use iHeartRadio. I mean, I know they have an awards show now just for iHeartRadio, but
Well, like I said, they own basically every radio station.
apparently, yes, they do now.
I think there's NPR and then all the iHeartRadio stations. That's all I know.
NPR is still separate from iHeartRadio.
It's right now. It probably won't last.
Thank God.
With that, I'm David Lott.
I'm Michelle Hillard.
Thanks for listening.